50-50 is really talking about the equality itself, and it's not about counting numbers. We have to be very careful about just counting numbers, because when we count numbers, we tend to forget that we don't want to tick a box. We want to make it real, and we want to make women to be able to access the same way a man accesses, but it doesn't mean the same number of women accessing as the same number of men accessing. So we want to have, if we want to have gender parity before we all leave this planet Earth, we need to step up what we're doing. So step it up for gender equality, right? So the Millennium Development Goal, a 25-year set of goals remain incomplete. And governments have recognized this. The Zimbabwe government has also recognized this. They haven't put them aside and said, let's pick up something else. They've incorporated what was out there into what we want to do now. And therefore you have the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. 3 million women are in the informal economy. What does that mean? The government, one, is missing an opportunity. Two, there are a lot of women who are not being substantially catered for by the social networks that do exist necessarily. And three, there are a lot of people, 3 million, if you look at some populations of a country that's 1 million. So you're really talking about a huge potential of human beings who are not being taken care of. And that is an opportunity for the government to harness and ensure that women are also accessing the economy in the same way as men. The intensity of women's gender roles around the drought is a disaster itself. Because if you have a particular gender role, you're responsible for fetching water, you're responsible for feeding the children, you're responsible for the water and sanitation needs of the household. Let me just even put it down to the household level. There's a drought now. It means that the water source that may have been closest to you is now further away from you. That means you're spending more time on managing to access water. If you're spending more time to manage to access water, it means it's taking away time from something else. And the question is, what are those others that you're not spending time on? UN Women did a drill-down study, case study, in 2 areas. One was in Mbire, and the other one was in Chiretsi. So what we did there is we wanted to find out what's happening with these women. If the drought is affecting the whole population, what about as your gender role, what is happening to you? We've had cases where women are working 20 kilometers to fetch water. Or cases where women are walking through wildlife areas in order to go and find sources of income, or even to go and trade in order for them to then come and feed their children. Child marriage, I think that's a conversation a lot of people have been speaking about. The constitutional ruling was fantastic, but it doesn't necessarily mean it will trickle down to the last person who still believes in that. What are we doing in that regard? As much as we can do advocacy out there, there'll still be populations of girls who will be married off. If you invest in a woman, you invest in a nation. It's not just a saying and it's not just a catchphrase. It's actually quite true, especially when you look at the statistics of women, when you look at the livelihoods of women, when you look at the potential that women would have if they were not encumbered in such a fashion. So we need to take those statements, not as phrases and not as something fancy you put on a banner, but to unpack it and understand it better about investment and where we invest. A lot of people assume gender mainstreaming is just put gender here and there in the document and we're okay, we're good to go. There's a deeper thinking that needs to happen in any sphere of work that we do. And that's one thing that UN Women prides themselves about, to be able to analyze it deeper than the general understanding of analyzing gender mainstreaming.
What are the positives that you can highlight and that we can celebrate and say, at least this has happened?
Actually, there is a lot to celebrate, and not just at a global level where how far women have come, but in Zimbabwe, the 2013 constitution provides well for gender equality.
As we mainstream gender, we also look at ways of improving the institutional outlook in order for it to add value to what we want the men and women within institutions to benefit knowledge from.
In terms of menstrual health, I would like to understand if it's something that is prioritized from.
I think there's an economic element to empowerment, and it's so central in how a woman is able to demand her rights and exercise them.